In this video, I'm going to show you how to blink an LED with a Raspberry Pi. This is kind of the hello world of Internet of Things, and it's something that's very easy to do, and it's something that will instantly show you the results of your work. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug in an LED to a breadboard, we're going to write a little bit of software, and we're going to blink an LED. Now you'll notice here that I have the Raspberry Pi connected to a miniature breadboard. This is a kit that I got at canakit.com, and it basically will take your I/O and put it here onto the breadboard so that you can push pieces into it and kind of prototype things out, and it makes it a lot easier to interact with those pins. Now you can see here that I have an LED and a resistor. Now you'll want to use a resistor on an LED when you're doing things like this, otherwise you will burn them up fairly quickly. Now you'll notice on the LED there we have an anode and a cathode. The anode is the longer end, and that's the one that's going to go towards the positive side. Now the reason I bring that up is because, as you can see, we have a couple power rails here. We've got a 3-volt rail and a 5-volt rail, and those are coming off the Raspberry Pi. You can use these as sources of power, but you should be warned that it is coming off the Raspberry Pi, so it doesn't have a ton of power. I wouldn't run giant servos off it or anything, but for an LED, it's definitely capable. And one thing you can do to test out both the power rail and the LED is by simply plugging it in. Now that we know our LED works, I've got the LED, I've got the 220 ohm resistor, and a jumper, and we're going to wire that into a circuit and then plug that into a GPIO, which I'll explain what that is as we're doing it. Now I've pulled it a little closer to the camera here so that you could see this circuit up close. What I have here is a jumper that's going from GPIO 4 to number 24 on our breadboard. Since these breadboard circuits go horizontally, you can see that I took the 220 ohm resistor and plugged it in just to the right of the jumper. And then the resistor goes down to number 26. Number 26 is connected to the anode of the LED, and then the cathode is plugged into the ground rail, which goes back to ground on the Raspberry Pi. So as you can see, this is a very simple circuit. And if it's going to work as designed, we're going to put power to GPIO 4, and then that is going to light up the LED. So I'll show you how to do that with the Raspberry Pi next. Now I mentioned that we were going to be working with the GPIO. This is the interface into the Raspberry Pi. GPIO stands for General Purpose Input Output. And that is exactly what it sounds like. It's input and output from the Raspberry Pi. Now what we're going to be doing for the LED is focusing on output. Now the GPIO output has 4 options. It has high, low, 3v3, and off. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting a pin to high by using the GPIO library in Python, and that is going to light up our LED. Now the pin that we're going to be concerned with here is the one that I called GPIO 4. And you'll notice that it's physical pin 7, and that's something that we will want to make a note of, and I'll explain that here in a minute. Okay, now I'm logged into my Raspberry Pi through SSH. And what we're going to do here is create a quick Python script that's going to turn that GPIO on and then off and blink our LED in the process. So we're going to write this using nano. And at the very top, we're going to import a couple of libraries here. Now I'm importing the RPI GPIO library, and that's so that we can interact with the GPIO. And then I'm also importing time because we're going to put a delay in between the blinking the LED. Now the first thing we're going to want to set is our pin. We're setting that to physical pin 7. Now you remember from the diagram I showed you earlier, this is where the physical pin is, so we're going to set that, and then we're going to set our delay to 1. And these are just the variables that we can change when we start making changes to this program. Now the first thing we're going to want to do is set the mode. Now what I've done here is set it to board mode so that we're using physical pin numbers, as we said earlier. And this is the way you want to do it if you're using a breadboard. It's a little bit easier to lay out sometimes. Now here we're typing in GPIO setup. We're going to use our pin and set it to GPIO out. That means we're using it for output as opposed to input, say measuring things like that. Now we're going to actually blink the LED. Now in order to do that, we're going to set the pin to high, which means on, which means it's receiving voltage. And then we're going to set it back to GPIO.low, which means it's not receiving voltage. And in between there, we'll put a little delay. Now, the last thing we want to do is we want to do a cleanup. Now we're going to put in the GPIO.cleanup, and what that does is it releases all the ports and sets it back to input mode. Now this only cleans up the ports that you are using in your program, but this is definitely necessary for cleaning up and releasing the resources for future use. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to run this and see if it blinks our LED. And now, the moment of truth. Will the LED blink or not? Now you notice I'm running this as sudo. You have to be running as root in order to access a GPIO. This is something that's very important and often overlooked. And in case you missed it there, running test py does indeed blink the LED. So that's neat. So let's change up the script a little bit. Now this is some pretty simple, straightforward code here. We set up a little configuration, we turn the pin on or off, we put a little delay in there, and it blinks the LED. Now what if we want to do something like blink the LED 5 or 6 times? Turns out that's pretty easy as well. Now what I'm going to do is define a function called activateLED. And as you can probably guess, this is going to light up our LED. Now in our old script, we had it so it set the pin high, then there's a 1-second delay, and then it sets the pin to low. Now if we're going to do any blinking, we need to put in another delay in here. That way it will blink properly. Now, if we use the activateLED function, it should activate an LED. So now we're going to run our test script to make sure the activateLED function is working as we expect it to. And it looks like it's working great. Now what if we want to light up this LED 5 times? Now of course we could copy these 4 lines of code here 5 times over, but that would definitely be a violation of the DRY principle and kind of silly, which is why we created the activateLED function. Now, using this for loop, we should be able to activate that LED 5 times. And it's that easy. Now in this video, we've gone over how to use the GPIO to light up an LED. Now there's a lot of things you can do with the GPIO. You can use it to trigger relays, to send signals, to light up LEDs. You can expand on what we've done here and light up 2 or 3 LEDs or an array of LEDs, all using the GPIO. Now there's other more complicated functions that come out of the GPIO. This is definitely just scratching the surface, but I hope this video has helped you with learning this very basic part. Now stay tuned for the next video.